There's been a rough week. I'd say a rough couple of weeks for the mainstream media. Their guy, Joe Biden, is been completely discredited, disgraced. Anybody who's honest, who's fair, knows the surrender in Afghanistan was a complete debacle, a complete humiliation on the world stage. I'm not sure you ever recover from that. And he makes it worse because he will not take questions when he can't even barely read a prepared statement or a prepared speech off a teleprompter. So, and as we point out often, he's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse, and it's just going to be uncomfortable for the next 3.5 years, maybe not even, maybe a half a year, maybe a year, but it's not going to go well. And when you hear people, there's certain people, like I said, Michael Moore and Matthew Dowd and Jennifer Rubin, who try to defend him, try to spin it. They just sound ridiculous. But it gets worse for the media. I mean, it's just, I have some bad news for the folks in the mainstream media, the New York Times and Washington Post and NBC, ABC, CNN. Joe Rogan has COVID. That's the good news. The bad news is he's going to be okay. He's going to get better. And he's in a few days, he's going to be back doing his podcast and saying, critical things of their heroes. And he's taking some unconventional medicine, and they're trying to make it seem like Joe Rogan is a lunatic because he's taking horse dewormer. As someone pointed out,
is that what that is?
Someone pointed this out. As soon as someone calls it horse dewormer, they're either stupid or they're lying to make Rogan look crazy, and they're hoping he takes a turn for the worse. They're hoping this, like they do when like any conservative, when Trump got COVID, when Melania got COVID, any Lindsey Graham, I guess, he's probably probably a bad example because he's kind of on their team, but anytime a conservative gets COVID, they're hoping maybe this will be the guy, especially if it's an anti-vaxxer, which Rogan is not. They're pretending he is because he once said, just conversationally said, if you're 21 years old and in good health, you don't really need the vaccine, which is obviously true, but you're not allowed to say that in this current climate. You're not allowed to say a 12-year-old who's in great shape shouldn't get the vaccine. That's against you can't say it. That makes you an anti-vaxxer, a conspiracy theorist. That makes you're the one to blame for the spike. If you say 12-year-olds shouldn't get vaccinated, it's your fault that there's a spike in Texas or something. But Rogan is such a big, just a guy who has followers, a guy who literally has, 13 million followers on Instagram and millions on his podcast. And they worry that he has influence. So anything he says has an effect on people. So today, lots of people are reading about ivermectin, correct?
Yeah.
And they're saying, oh, maybe this is the way to go. And he's taken lots of other things. And the mainstream media is sitting back saying, please don't let this work. Please let him let something happen to him to make him look bad, to make the whole notion that you could just take a couple drugs, stay in bed for 2 days and be back at work. They don't want that. They need the scare tech. That's why they lie about children. They lie about kids getting COVID, or they lie about the hospitals being overloaded. It is this massive, dare I say, misinformation campaign. And I hate to break it to him, but in a couple of days, Joe Rogan's going to be back on his show, and he's going to say, I'm fine. I feel great. Wasn't a big deal. And they hate that more than anything. That they can't say, look, it affects everybody. It kills everybody. They can't say that, and it drives them nuts. Fauci can't say it. I mean, he wants to. He wants to say it's killing young, healthy people, because then we might listen to something that he has to say. Or Walensky wants to say, yes, it's killing children.
Did you see the warnings as soon as Rogan let us
the warning label on it?
All over Twitter, you got, because he started trending saying that he had COVID, but he was fine. And immediately there's CDC warnings and all sorts of stuff under the Twitter on the right hand side, and the what's happening section saying, don't take ivermectin, you'll die, all this stuff. It's crazy.
Every story says unproven,
Yeah.
I just looked at this is NBC, and they have the video. We'll play Rogan talking about it, but he says Rogan. They say Rogan posted a video on Instagram explaining he tested positive. He said he had fevers and chills. His treatments include, and he lists what he's saying, including ivermectin, which is not an antiviral drug and generally used to treat or prevent parasites in animals such as horses. This is a medication that's been used by millions, and according to many, it works, but they don't want it to work. They don't want something to be this simple that you can go and get COVID and be unvaccinated and take ivermectin and get better. You know that it's that way. It's not the Black Plague. It has to be the Black Plague for us to continue to listen to Fauci.
Well, how much do you think the pharmaceutical companies are making off of this? Do you think they want you to take ivermectin? Of course not, because then that would cut into their bottom line, and they're going to make. How much do you want to bet that they're behind this ivermectin, anti-hydroxychloroquine campaign? Because obviously that hurts their bottom line. No,
I would say, Turtle Boy, 6 months, a year ago, I would say you're nuts. I don't like those. That sounds like
a little bit too much of a conspiracy.
Yeah, and I don't like it. But I'm telling you, this virus, this pandemic, and the resulting overreaction, the resulting tyrannical response from government has created more conspiracy theories than Alex Jones ever could. It created more conspiracy theories than JFK's assassination and 9/11. You name it. Nothing has led to more people doubting the official position of the government than this. And I understand why. I mean, do you realize that what they're saying now, Turtle Boy better than anyone, because you have to wrap your kid's face in a mask every day, that nothing has essentially changed. It's been a year and a half. So like when we were talking about this a year and a half ago, Turtle Boy, we were talking about, masks. Well, not right away. Initially, Fauci said, don't wear a mask. And Jerome Adams said, don't wear a mask. But once they got enough masks for everybody, they said, you have to wear a mask. It's, but essentially social distancing and, whatever, wash your hands. They still say the same thing.
Wash your hands. That's the one I don't get. We know it comes from your mouth, not your hands, right? What are we?
Somebody was telling my wife, I forget what the details, but you said you couldn't have people in the library. You can't have people touch the book. You have to leave it there. You can't. And I go, wait a second. That was debunked like a year ago. Mm-hmm. A year ago, we're supposed to wash your groceries. There's still people who think, you can't touch certain things or you'll get COVID. They haven't, in some people's minds, nothing has changed. And by the way, it keeps spreading. So whatever we did a year ago, mask, social distancing, all, remote learning, it didn't work. At some point you say, well, that didn't work. The official, the gurus or oracles here, Fauci and Walensky, they should be doing some, I don't know, just me. Shouldn't they be recommending something different?
Oh, yeah.
How about exercise? How about when's the last time you heard Dr. Fauci say that you should exercise? That would be a good thing. Don't be a fat ass.
That's such a great point, and we've talked about it before. He's been talking for a year and a half. He's probably talking right now to somebody on CNN, and so is she, by the way. Oh, and you got to see this. I tweeted this out last night. They have this summit, Boston Globe Summit. Did you see this?
Right.
At the end of this month. And it's Ibrahim Kendi, and it's all kinds of radicals about anti-racism and equity. And you know who's part of the panel?
Fauci
and Walensky. These people are supposed to be doctors. They're supposed to be public health officials.
It's not political. It's not political, though, Jerry. The virus is not political.
There's nothing you could do more political than attend a summit hosted by the Boston Globe, the rag that serves as the media wing of the woke mob that started a podcast with Ibrahim Kendi about anti-racism. And they're going to have him and a bunch of other radicals and Fauci and Walensky. Now, even if you believe that you'd like to be there and you believe in everything he says and everything, Robert DiAngelo says, Don't you think it's a bad look? Someone should tell Fauci.
No. You don't understand Fauci, Gerry. Fauci literally gets off to the sound of his own voice. It stimulates the man. He's in his 80s. This is the most arousal he has. The idea that people are interested in hearing what he has to say and giving him a place to say it uninterrupted and just kind of worship him. He gets off on that. That's why he doesn't want this to ever end.
No, it's the greatest, 80 years old, and the greatest thing that ever happened to him was in a lab, which he subsidized in Wuhan. The virus escaped and started a worldwide pandemic. The best thing that's ever happened to Anthony Fauci, and he can't deny it. I mean, you're right. He sits there when he's talking to Breonna Keller or John Berman or anybody. He calls them all by their first names, by the way. Jake and Chuck, and George. Those are his friends. I know he's 80, but he still can get a little pup tent in his pants when he's talking about controlling the population. He's totally aroused. He's like this character out of a Judge Dredd movie or something. One of these type. He's like, and he comes on. It's like, I don't know. You probably never heard this. It's like 1984.
Yes.
Where he's in control and everything is backwards and upside down. He loves it. He absolutely loves it.
Did you see there's another interesting person on that panel too? Jenny Slade. Do you know who she is?
I do not.
Jenny Slade is she's an actor, and a comedian, but she was on a show called Big Mouth. It's a cartoon, and she was playing a black character. She's not black, and she resigned from the show and apologized.
She's one of those. She's on
an apology tour at this thing with the Boston Globe.
And now Cleveland. Gotcha. Okay.
Right. Like, and now you have the doctors and the public health officials. They're not only coming out against people paying their rent. They don't believe people should pay their rent. They're against rent. Yes. They're against landlords. They want to bankrupt landlords, and they want all the people who rent to have a free ride forever. That's a public health issue. Now they're coming out with language. I don't know if you saw Tucker did. They have all these new language. You're not supposed to call disabled people disabled. You're supposed to be peoples with disabilities. And then you go, wait a second. Your doctor, your job is disease control, thus the D and the C. And you're talking about, hurtful language, or you're talking about layabouts who don't pay their rent. You're supporting them. I mean, it must take all they have not to come out in favor of, abortion in the third trimester, because they're just radicals. That's what they are. They're not public health officials. They're radicals. And they are hoping also, I'm telling you right now, Fauci was asked about Rogan when Rogan said healthy 21-year-olds don't need the vaccine. They're hoping that this will be the rare case where someone who's not elderly, not obese, takes a wrong turn.
Right. Yeah. But even if he dies, doesn't that just kind of prove the point that, like, Joe Rogan made his choice? We all have choices. He chose to not get vaccinated during a pandemic, and he died from a virus. Like, that's literally the whole point, is you have a right to take a risk. No?
Well, I think the people who take risks, Turtle Boy, don't think they're going to die. This radio host, Phil Valentine, there's some liberals were dancing on his grave. He's 61 years old. I don't think he was obese, but he was probably not in great shape. And he was an anti-vaxxer. Rogan's not an anti-vaxxer.
No, he never has been.
I'm not, you are, but I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I don't think I certainly don't think 12-year-olds should get vaccinated. Does that make you an anti-vaxxer? Again, it's like if they had a vaccination against to cure dementia. Right? It'd be wonderful. It would be a great development, a great breakthrough. Would you ask, 15-year-olds to take it if they had a vaccination against dementia? There are certain things that don't affect children. One of them being COVID. So why are you forcing this injection on children? And I can't imagine being in your position, Turtle Boy, where they're going to get to 6-year-olds. They're going to get around to 6-year-olds, and you say, yes, your 6-year-old must be vaccinated, and you will fight them and you will resist. But their goal, they flat out say, is to make life difficult for the unvaccinated.
And I don't like the conspiracy stuff either, but don't you have to ask the question that a lot of public funds are going to pay for these vaccinations? So can you not see that the incentive is to try to get as many people to take it as possible, even kids?
What was the number in the number of Pfizer new billionaires? Like 12 guys became billionaires during the pandemic. But during the pandemic, the value of their stocks.
You have to have last That's the question, right? What's the incentive here?
No.
Now you're talking my language. You're following the money.
Well, you know what? It is created. It is fertile grounds for growing young skeptics, if not conspiracy theorists. Yes, when you say a dozen guys are now billionaires because they have not only developed and sold this vaccine, but they've forced it on people and shamed you if you don't do it. Do we know if Rogan has been vaccinated?
So I saw a report yesterday on Twitter that he was vaccinated, but I wasn't able to confirm that before we went live today. So it's something I'm definitely going to look into today.
Yeah, I can't tell when I see him in pictures. Is he just jacked or is he a little chunky?
He's got a lot of muscle.
Yeah. He's like one of those, people that exercise. He's got a lot of free time, so he can exercise a couple hours a day. And, he's a fitness junkie. He's one of those.
Well, jiu-jitsu, he's a big martial artist,
right.
jiu-jitsu, and he works out.
He's short, but it's like the Fox NFL guy, Jay Glazer, and he always talks about MAA and training and everything. And I look at him, and he just looks like a little chunky guy to me. I know he probably trains hard, but he's not exactly lean. Not exactly lean.
I think a lot of it is muscle. I mean, he runs and stuff.
Rogan?
Too. Yeah, I think so.
Rogan was a national champ in mixed martial arts. So I'm going to guess you got to be in pretty good shape to do that. And I was talking to Mike Clark. Lenny was on with Rogan when Rogan was still in L.A. and they were getting ready to record. And I heard it. It was a great show. It was all down memory lane about Boston comedy because Rogan came up, and Mike Clark owns Giggles, and he books and he handles a lot of comedians and gets some jobs. And Rogan was a young comedian, which is hard to believe that he was one of these young comedians playing Giggles and Nick's Comedy Stop in Boston. I don't even think he's funny on his show. I mean, he's good. He's a good interviewer and he's smart. But I was surprised when about a year ago, or maybe could have been a year and a half ago, I think it was on Netflix. I don't know what it was on, but he had a stand-up special.
Yeah.
And it was good. I mean, he was funny as hell. He was he was a little dangerous, a little edgy, and he was but that doesn't come through necessarily on his show.
No, I think it's a different format. I mean, when he's got comedians on, they'll banter back and forth, and it's a little bit funnier. But no, his stand-up, I think he's probably a better writer, a better comedy writer than he is.
He's not even that good. I mean, bro, I like the show sometimes. I don't get the whole lot. Like, I don't understand why it's so popular. All he does, he's not that interesting himself. He just invites interesting people on his show, and he's just like, "Oh, that's interesting. Oh, really? That's interesting." And that's all he does. He's a little bit overrated.
Turtle Boy, if he says anything remotely, I don't even say controversial, just opinionated, it goes viral. Like he talks about cancel culture, and he'll say, well, cancel culture's out of control. Cancel culture sucks. He says the same thing we say, or millions others say, and boom, it gets a video clip gets sent out and it's everywhere, and it's like, whoa, Joe Rogan comes out against cancel culture.
He probably has the biggest audience in the country, though, bigger than
Tucker. That's why, because they know he's influential, and he's influential with not just conservatives but also some libertarians, right. And I'm sure many people on the left also listen to him, and that's why they're threatened by people like him, is because he has such a big reach, and they're like, okay, Tucker Carlson's only going to talk to right wingers, whereas this guy might influence some people on our team. If he says something crazy, we need to shut that down.
Yeah, I think he's had Bernie on, right?
He said he said Bernie on. He said he really likes him, really likes him.
He endorsed him.
Right, he endorsed him, which was stupid because there's no substance to it. We talked about it at the time. He just said, I really like him. He's a good guy. I like him.
Rogan's not as smart as people think. He just says, he's like, oh yeah, I was smoking some peyote last night and I really like Bernie's ideas. He's like really cool. I mean, I don't find Rogan that interesting. It's just the people that he has on his show are interesting.
He can't make the case. He endorsed Bernie, but he couldn't support it with any real substance. But that's okay. That way he kind of remains, a man of mystery. He remains a guy that you can't put into a box like us. But just to finish the story, Lenny and Mike are waiting for him to come in at his studio in L.A. And he said it's like an airplane hangar, and the door opens and in comes flying in a Tesla is Rogan. And next to the setup where they're doing the show is a boxing ring. He's got a whole gym in this like airplane hangar with whatever weights and all exercise equipment and a ring, a mixed martial arts ring, I guess. And you're right, he does. He has a lot of time and he works out hard, but he still looks a little beefy. And whenever you see someone who, and I realize you're not supposed to talk about this, Turtle Boy, but you see someone who dies young or fairly young of COVID, there's a picture. It'll be someone, whether they're vaccinated, or whatever, nowadays it'll be unvaccinated guy. And then you see them and they look like, they're very, very overweight, and you're not allowed to say it. As Turtle Boy points out, Fauci's been yapping for a year and a half. Never, ever does he say, it'd be a good idea. Get up and take a walk.
I haven't seen numbers either on, that being a comorbidity. What percentage of people who died are obese?
It's like
80%. We've seen that 80%.
Have you seen it? Because I haven't.
All you have to do is look at the data with Japan. Japan is like one of the least fat countries in the world somehow, and nobody dies of COVID in Japan when they get it. It's like it's just the most obvious statistic is that obesity equals death from COVID. Just don't. And that's fine if you're fat and you don't want to get vaccinated. You're taking a larger chance than I am. No pun intended. But, and that's your choice. But why are we not talking about that? That's what drives me nuts.
Right. So you say, wash your vegetables when you come home from the supermarket, but you won't say stop, eating, dessert or stop, get off the couch and exercise a little. Close the gyms. That was how we responded to a pandemic that was uniquely threatening to overweight people. Our response was, close the gyms, stop playing sports in the park, and leave McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's and Walmart open. If that doesn't make you question your public health officials, what does? The idea that you should close the gyms and by the way, stay home, where like 98% of the transmission is indoors. Don't go out, don't run, don't walk, don't ride your bike. Stay home. And breathe on all your loved ones until you all get COVID. That the idea that we still listen to the people, hell, the Boston Globe is hosting a forum, a summit, and having those people as featured guests is just amazing. How you could be so wrong so often and maintain any credibility is one of the great scandals of all time. And historians will look back and go, wait a second.
You listen to these people?
This fool who sent money to the lab that created the virus was an authority after you knew that, after you found out, after he lied and said, no, he didn't lie. He said it was a real risk doing gain-of-function research, but it was worth the risk. It was worth the risk of a pandemic. So he sent taxpayers' money. Quick question for you guys. A little chunk comes out of your paycheck every week. Would you rather send it to the Taliban, as financial assistance from the Biden administration, or send it to the Wuhan lab so that they can create a virus that kills millions?
There's no.
I'd like to open up a Planned Parenthood in Kabul. How about that?
Jeez.
Then that'd be applauded by many people today, especially because you have a draconian new law going into effect in Texas. And everybody on the left, I just saw Ben Volen tweeting, they're all upset that more babies will live. It's just so upsetting. Can you believe more babies, particularly minority babies, will live? That is tough to handle. It's really upsetting to me. But I want to get back, before we get to that, let's do Rogan's talk here. He made a statement on Instagram, correct?
Yep.
And he explains all the things he's taken. How do you know what you're doing? Does he go to it? Is this what Alex Jones told him to do, or did he go to a doctor? He's taking.
He's a 100 millionaire. Of course, he's got doctors that he trusts. He's got the best in the business.
So doctors tell you to take all this stuff.
I'm assuming someone gave him this is the risk factor. Here are the things that you need to do, and they took. I
think Brett Weinstein's his doctor or something.
Oh, it could be.
You know what? What if it works? Is everyone going to say, "Oh, look what Joe Rogan did"? Because here's the bottom line, guys: is we're all going to get COVID. We're all going to get it at some point. Some it'll affect worse than others. Turtle Boy, you'll be fine. You're in good shape. You're young. You're stubborn. You're not going to die. I hopefully won't either, even though I'm old, but I'm not fat. but we're all going to get it at some point. And the question is, how does it affect us? And if taking these drugs after you get it as a therapeutic, as a treat, if that works, isn't that the worst nightmare for the people, especially if he's unvaccinated, for the people in the media or the people at the NIH or the Fauci and Walensky and the rest of the radicals? They don't want this to work, do they?
I don't think they do. And just as you were talking, we said goodbye to Turtle Boy. I believe he had an engagement at 8:25 this morning. So now it's just you and me, kid.
What do we do now?
What do we do? Well, we can still do the Rogan thing if you want to hear it.
Just so you know, Turtle Boy is a conspiracy theorist. He is an anti-vaxxer. He is a complete radical nut job when it comes to this. Not me, not you, but he is. So
I love throwing him under the bus when he's not here. I think the problem is people you're put into two camps. So suddenly, Joe Rogan's an anti-vaxxer, even though he's just questioning whether you should give children this vaccine.
Yeah, you're right. Every reference to him in all these stories, I just read you the NBC story, mentions that he, as an anti-vaxxer, has said anti-vax things in the past. We talked about it. He said, matter-of-factly, that if you're young and you're in good shape, maybe you don't really need it. Like, he stated the obvious. He stated a fact. And that became, and the next day, Fauci was asked about it. And he said, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that. That's misinformation. And all the media pounced on him. And he backtracked. I don't know who got to him. I thought Rogan's whole appeal was nobody gets to him. He's his own man. But he did backtrack. He still isn't a pro-vaxxer. He still isn't one of these guys who says if you don't get the vaccine, you're just like a murderer with a gun shooting people. He's not one of these lunatics. But he said young people who are healthy don't need it, which is obvious. Anyone who says otherwise is a fanatical.
The death data is there. Like, we see it. If you're under 18, you just don't die unless you have a severe comorbidity. Like, you have cancer or something, you're going to survive.
Yes. As Marty McCary, the Johns Hopkins guy, said, they studied the data and zero children died of COVID last year without a serious comorbidity. And he said, such as leukemia. That was in the Wall Street Journal. We've referred to it many times. 0 children died. So it's not a problem with children, and the people telling you it is are lying to you. The school board members who say mask your kids or they're murderers, they're lying to you.
Yeah.
They're lying to you to expand their control over everybody. And I think the fear for Fauci, Walensky, for the media, for the real lockdown pro-vaxxers is that someone like Rogan, as you point out, has 13 million followers and a lot of listeners and a lot of influence, gets better in 2 days with this horse dewormer, ivermectin, and everyone else who gets COVID, and we're all going to get it, says, I got to get me some ivermectin, and they don't want that.
Now, to be fair, ivermectin isn't an antiviral, so I don't know why it works. I'd love to do a little bit more research and see like why potentially this can actually have a health benefit. I don't understand. It's a virus. It's not for viruses, but whatever he did worked. 3 days in, he's up and about. He sounds fine.
Is he better already?
Yeah. So when he did this, when he did his announcement, I think it was yesterday on Instagram, which we can play if you want. He's already good. Like he said, he tested positive 3 days before. He had one bad day. And then the next day he was better, and then the third day he's like, I'm.
Bad news. Shape. Bad news for MSNBC. Bad news for Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon. Don Lemon said yesterday, what did he say? Something about people who aren't vaccinated, or like he went off the rails. But let's listen to Rogan and tell us all the stuff he's taken to get better to combat the COVID.
Hello, friends. So I got back from the road Saturday night, feeling very weary. I had a headache, and I just felt run down. And just to be cautious, I separated from my family, slept in a different part of the house. And throughout the night, I got fevers and sweats, and I knew what was going on. So I got up in the morning, got tested, and turns out I got COVID. So we immediately threw the kitchen sink at it, all kinds of meds, monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, Z-Pak, prednisone, everything. And I also got an NAD drip and a vitamin drip, and I did that 3 days in a row. And so here we are on Wednesday, and I feel great. I really only had one bad day. Sunday sucked, but Monday was better. Tuesday felt better than Monday, and today I feel good. I actually feel pretty fucking good. That's the good news. The bad news is we have to move the Friday show in Nashville.
So there you go.
So he is all better. How do you do that, though? How do you get all that stuff? All those
Well,
I know he's got a lot of money.
He has a supplement company too. So the NAD drip, I'm sure I've heard him talk about that before. I think that's anti-aging. Don't quote me if I'm wrong. The other one's a vitamin drip. So I'm sure he does, pumps vitamin D, pumps vitamin C. When I thought perhaps when I was sick and we did the remote shows last week, that's what I did. I pumped myself with vitamin C and vitamin D. Vitamin D there's some research out there that shows
you didn't have COVID. So
I did not. No, but I took that trajectory. He has Dr. Rhonda Patrick on the show a lot, and she is a big proponent of some
if someone wants to do that, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, but I mean, he kicked it in 3 days. It's worth it,
I guess, but you can't do it if you don't have the means, if you don't have the connections. But good luck to him. I'm glad he's better. He looks a little ragged, doesn't he?
Well, he's 54. He's not shaven.
He looks a little tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm glad he's back. He had to cancel his show. That's too bad. But again, that's going to create a whole new line of disinformation, misinformation, according to the authorities. They're going to say, don't do the D-Pack. Don't do the ivermectin. No, don't. They don't want you to go off script here. They literally go off script. They want you to listen to them and do what they say.
For what it's worth, Dave Collins here in the chat says that the ivermectin opens the cells. So I don't know what that does. And then he also says we have free monoclonal antibody sites here in Florida.
That's true. Ron DeSantis, our next president, set those up, and it pissed off the media. But it sounds like a good idea to me. But all right, get well soon. If you're not well already, Joe Rogan, we have to move on. We got much to get to. I want to get to Stephen A. and the fakest farewell. We've talked about fake apologies many times. We're going to play you the fakest farewell as Stephen A. bids goodbye to his his friend Max Kellerman. Nothing like saying goodbye to someone who you just shivved in the back. But we got to get to a couple things. The last year, I believe it was last year, a couple months ago, Donald Trump talked about a military parade for the 4th of July, celebrating Independence Day with a military parade, and the media was aghast. The liberal, they were aghast. You can't do that. That's what they do in
North Korea.
Dictatorships and despots do that, and the Chinese do that. North Koreans do that, and it didn't happen. That was fine. It was going to be a big parade with trucks and tanks and military people on 4th of July, but it didn't happen. As usual, Trump kind of backed down, which he often did. Well, we finally got it. We finally got our military parade with all our military stuff, our tanks and our trucks and our guns and our uniforms and our Black Hawk helicopters. Unfortunately, it was in Kabul. If you're one of those people who thought they wouldn't be able to fly the choppers, you were wrong.
They learned quick.
They learned quick. They got pictures of them in the cockpit, and they were flying a Black Hawk helicopter over this parade with a Taliban flag flying from it. I got to make a list. I'm going to make a list one of these days, maybe this weekend, just sit and make a list of things that the Biden administration, the Biden regime has done that are much, much, much worse than Donald Trump's phone call to the Ukraine telling them to look into the corruption of the Biden crime family, or telling the mob on January 6th to go peacefully and patriotically protest. Those are the two things that got him impeached. And we've gone over for days and weeks now the things Biden has done that would get him impeached. I'm going to say, without exaggeration, that there are things every day, every single day, we're learning about the Biden regime that would get him impeached if he were a Republican. I would say, get him impeached if the Republicans had the House and the Senate, but I can't say that because Mitch McConnell is a coward. Mitch McConnell is a invertebrate, a spineless worm who doesn't fight like they fight. Or even in the House, Kevin McCarthy, he's already said, no, we're not going to have an impeachment. Well, what if you win the House in 2022? Of course you could have an impeachment. Of course this is impeachable. I mean, honest to God, this was yesterday. One day, here's what we learned. And this is irrefutable. This is in Reuters. This is being mentioned in some liberal outlets. The media cannot bury it. They will try, but they, according to Reuters, well, I mean, it's not even according to Reuters. It's a fact. Joe Biden, asked the former president of Afghan, Ghani, speaking of weasels, Ghani, who scrammed with $160 million in a chopper. That guy had a conversation. Can you get the date on this? I think it was July. I think it was
July 23rd.
23rd. I should know that. That's my birthday. But July 23rd, they have a conversation, and he literally asks him to lie. He says, "We need to change the perception that you guys are, ready to fight, whether it is true or not." He knew it wasn't true. So on July 23rd, he pressured the president of Afghanistan to lie. Now, what did that do? That allowed Biden to surrender and say, yeah, we think the Afghan army is up for this. They're ready for the fight. We think the Afghan government is going to hold up, when he knew it wasn't true. So he knew it wasn't true. This is proof that Biden knew the Afghan army wasn't up for the fight. He knew it wouldn't hold up. He knew it. And he lied to us. He lied to the world. He lied to the 13 Marines and the Navy corpsmen who were killed by a suicide bomber. He knew that. He lied. That is so much worse than anything Donald Trump or even, Richard Nixon, any president has done. He lied to us and said he thought on July 8th is the famous speech, but he said it repeatedly that, yes, we think the Afghan government will hold up. We'll get out. They'll hold up. They got plenty of armaments. They have 300,000 guys. They're good. They're ready for this fight. He knew it was untrue. He lied about it, and he asked the Afghan president, Ghani, to lie about it as well. Go ahead, throw anything out that Trump did in 4 years, Trump said in 4 years, that's anywhere close to that. That is the definition of impeachable right there. And that doesn't even include this story. It's a report that has not made the rounds wildly yet. This was tweeted out by former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Roger Pardo Maurer. Said the Department of Defense had knowledge of the Kabul suicide bomber, and they denied permission to fire a Predator drone at him, even though they were locked on the bomber. Now, you're one of the parents of these dead Marines. You hear that? You want to hear more. Certainly want to follow up. The media will do their best to bury it. But if this breaks, if this is confirmed, if this guy goes public, appears a number of places, and we start hearing the story and it's believable, honest to God, that's again much, much, much worse than anything Trump did. It's worse than anything that I can remember any president doing. I mean, it's just insane that they could have taken out the suicide bomber and they didn't. Okay, it's Thursday. We'll wait till tomorrow. There'll be something else. But on a daily basis, we find out just how scandalous this surrender is. And keep in mind, when you hear it, when you see it, when you talk about it, it was all designed to give Joe Biden, who, by the way, called it an extraordinary success. An extraordinary success. Just off the top of my head, you left Americans behind, hundreds, if not thousands. You left $85 billion in American weaponry behind. They already had a parade with it. They're wearing our uniforms, carrying our guns, wearing our Oakleys. They got choppers, they got planes, they got tanks, they got guns, they got machine guns, rifles, they got everything. He left that behind. He left people behind. He got 13 service people blown up unnecessarily at Kabul airport. It's international humiliation. You took 120,000 people out and bragged about what a great evacuation was, and your surrogates in the media compare it to Dunkirk and say what an amazing job you did. 5,000 were Americans. Most of them were not interpreters. You just took 120,000 refugees and spread them around the country and said, aren't we wonderful? No one's buying it. It's a disaster. It's an embarrassment. It could not have gone much worse.
So I see the taking out of the bomber as a tough decision to make. But because I know as much as it sucks, they're negotiating with the Taliban at that time, and they're trying to not get a bunch more Americans killed. And so if they just take out someone from the Taliban and they're wrong,
I think
it's not a bomber.
Well, this is
then
ISIS,
there could be some retribution.
This is an ISIS guy.
I hear you.
Who was supposed to be stopped by the Taliban, our security force, and wasn't. You're right. It's a tough call.
So you err on the side of blowing them up.
140 people died, not just 13. I realize that.
Well, I know we see the results now, though. But at the time, it's different.
40 people. This is a very successful suicide bomb.
I agree. But you don't know that going into it.
I'm just saying this is the story. It's if it gets bigger, I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He could do anything. It doesn't matter. He's inept. He's not even fit for office, and it doesn't seem to matter. Once again, yesterday, he made a public appearance with his mask on, with the guy from the Ukraine, and after talking about Ukraine, obviously Ukraine's been very, very good to the Biden family. After talking about that, he says, okay, we're done here. And the media wants to ask about Afghanistan, the biggest foreign policy disaster in American history. And the president doesn't deign to comment on it again.
Yep.
He doesn't feel obligated. I mean, this is disgusting. In my opinion, you have an obligation. I mean, as I point out, pitchers who have a bad game or golfers who lose a tournament are more accountable than the president of the United States, the commander in chief is. He doesn't feel like he has to answer any questions. Screw you. I do what I want. I'm not talking about Afghanistan. That's the last quote we have from him on Afghanistan when he was asked after that the press conference at FEMA. He said, I'm not talking about Afghanistan. You have to. And if we had a real media, they would demand it. To me, the fact that he's too much of a coward to even answer a question is disgusting. You owe that to the Gold Star families of the 13 people that you got killed. You owe them at least accountability. We go back to his speech from 2 days ago when he said, I take responsibility for everything, but it's all Trump's fault and all the Afghan army's fault. And it was a kind of a weird juxtaposition. It was an extraordinary success, and I'm quoting, but it was Trump's fault.
Oh, I know. I know.
But it was Ghani's fault.
And it's the Americans who are stuck in Afghanistan who haven't gotten out.
Who we warned in March.
19 times.
We warned in March to get out, and in July we assured them that the Afghan army was okay.
Right.
The Afghan
it's everybody else's fault.
So we warned them, and then we told them everything was cool. So it's their fault. It was an extraordinary success, but let me tell you who's to blame. That was essentially this speech in a nutshell, which is pretty bizarre.
Well, and then on this bombing, they overcompensate and they end up taking out a family a couple days later, probably because they knew they should have done this.
I'm making my list. Impeachable offenses, killing 7 kids and then saying, mistakes happen. It happens. We killed 7 kids, including, and I believe their father or the man who they took out was an ally, was an interpreter. So, and we leave with 120,000 refugees. And now it's all, here you go, Wisconsin or Pennsylvania, Tennessee. Here's your 10, 15, 20,000 Afghans who, don't speak English. They're not translators. They don't speak English. Help them out, would you? And there's an ad. Tucker played it last night. Alexandria, this town of Alexandria, Virginia, they're taking refugees, and they put an ad out asking for people who speak Pashto or whatever the other language they speak. So obviously they're not interpreters. They don't speak English. And you have tens of thousands of them. They dump them in your community and they say, hey, take care of them. What's heroic about that? That's what Lloyd Austin yesterday called it, heroic. Heroic. I just listed you the missteps. The missteps, yeah. The dead Marines, the dead kids. I list the armaments, the parades. He calls it heroic. And again, nobody loses his job. Nobody gets demoted. Nobody takes the blame. They're all a bunch of cowards. And it continues to be a national humiliation.
Here's Austin in his own words. Want to hear?
Sure.
Now, we have just concluded the largest air evacuation of civilians in American history. It was heroic. It was historic.
There you go.
That is disgusting. You are disgusting, Lloyd Austin. I mean, heroic. What is heroic?
I mean, I hate to be the sensitive one of the two of us, but I do, if we saved 80,000, 90,000, not all of them are terrorists. I mean, if we saved 90,000 people or something from certain death, then
why would it be certain death? These weren't collaborators. They're not interpreters.
Well, some of them that we evacuated absolutely were.
Yeah, well, most of them weren't. And it's great that we're giving them a new life and giving them, all the benefits of the United States. Why is that heroic? Why don't we just go to every third world?
That's what America was built on. I'm not saying that that's our which
America was not
we didn't
built on that.
Well, we didn't have the welfare state back then. So give us you're tired, you're poor, all that stuff could work. It doesn't work as well right now because now the government public funds are funding it. But in general, I think it's good to try to save people.
We left Americans behind.
Oh, that's terrible. Not arguing that.
Put a bunch of refugees on planes and flew them to America. Why is that heroic?
Because you're saving people's lives. I mean, their lives. Think of that. Their lives.
I don't think the Taliban.
Anytime you save a life, I think it's heroic.
Lots of kids. You think the Taliban was going to kill everybody that got on the C-17s?
Well, no, but they probably.
They're our allies. Don't you know that? Now they promised.
right. Against ISIS-K, I know they did promise.
They're our allies. We're going to send them.
You
money.
have to admit that some of the people would have been shot. The Taliban's going house to house with names, killing people. Some of those people, not just American collaborators, but Afghan collaborators too.
We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. And if they kill Americans, then we'll ask, was it heroic to leave those Americans behind?
Well, I don't think
you could say it was successful. Go ahead, say it was successful. We got a bunch of people.
I don't say that either.
You're going to dump them in middle America. They're going to vote Democrat.
Iowa mostly. Just put them in Iowa.
Right. It was, put them in swing states. Put them in Wisconsin, Iowa, Pennsylvania. They'll vote Democrat because Joe Biden saved them. That's what they consider heroic. Dumping a bunch of new Democrats in middle America. That's what they consider a success. I still want to know what happens to the Americans left behind. Or, Muhammad, the guy that saved Senator Joe Biden.
I saw that too. He's reaching out to Biden saying, save us, save my family.
He's
I saved you.
The Taliban is looking for him. He's probably going to get a bullet between the eyes. If he's lucky, he won't get tortured. And then what will Joe Biden? Joe Biden, that's the other thing, the myth that's been debunked here. He has to be the least empathetic, the least compassionate commander-in-chief we've ever had. He doesn't give a damn.
Well, expanded the drug war. Of course, he doesn't have empathy.
Well, he met with the families, the Gold Star mothers and fathers, and he didn't care at all. He looked at his watch constantly, not just once. And then all he did was talk about his own son who died of cancer at the age of 46. He's talking to people whose 20-year-olds were blown up because of his decision, and he's making it about him. Every family that went there said it was disgusting. He only cares about himself. He doesn't care about other people. He's not empathetic or compassionate or, good old Joe, your working class Joe. He's an arrogant, elitist, DC swamp creature. And we're going to see, as this goes forward, we're going to see just how empathetic and compassionate he is, because he doesn't even feel like he owes anyone an answer.
Well, no, Mark Schmitz, to your point, I know you heard some of that audio. Maybe would you say it wasn't on Tucker? It was on something last night. Where the father of a fallen soldier, Jared Schmitz, he showed Biden a picture of Jared, and Biden starts talking about Bo, and he's like, "I'm not here to talk about Bo. I want you to remember my son."
And the guy was great, and so was Shana Chappelle we talked about yesterday.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, they met with him and they said he didn't care.
And Biden was barking at him, like he was pushing back against him. It's like that's not what you do to a grieving dad.
Not a grieving dad whose child is gone because of you. I mean, he should be on his knees begging for forgiveness for these poor people. But enough of that. I'm going to make the list. We just did. We just made a list of a dozen things he's done that are just so. I mean, these are high crimes and misdemeanors. These are all impeachable. It is sad that we don't have a standard because, they have a 50-50 split in the Senate. We can't impeach, or they have a 5-vote advantage in the House. We can't even have hearings when he's just done some of the most egregious things. Again, he pressured the president of Afghanistan to lie. Right there, if Trump ever did that, he'd be impeached today. They'd take the vote today. Nancy Pelosi would take a vote today. It'd be impeached and it'd go to the Senate, or it'd be impeached and go to the Senate for conviction. He'd be convicted and it'd be over. I mean, his presidency would be over. But for some reason, good old Joe gets away with it. But we have to move on. I got a couple other things I want to get to here.
Want to hit Shay first?
Yeah, let's hit Shay, and then I will get to the fakest farewell from Stephen A. Smith. And by the way, we'll tell you about somebody, a famous assassin who might just be getting out of prison. And we'll talk about the hypocrites who are trying to keep him there. But let's talk about Shay. All right, before we get to Stephen A.'s fake farewell and some a little announcement about us, I want to talk about Sirhan. He's 77 years old. He's up for parole. I think he's got like 4 months to wait as they review, and he might get out. And the only reason this annoys me, the only reason I find it notable, is that his kids, 6 of his children, I believe he has 9. He had 10, obviously 10 children, but 6 led by Joseph Kennedy, former congressman, and Joseph Kennedy Jr., another former congressman. They are vehemently opposed to Sirhan, the assassin of Robert Kennedy, getting out of prison after, how many years would that be?
50 years, something.
53 years, something like that. Sirhan, an assassin who killed Robert Kennedy because of his support of Israel. But anyway, so they've come out, they've got statements, interviews. They don't want him to see a day of freedom. He was initially sentenced to death, and the family did not, Ted Kennedy being one, didn't want him assassinated. I guess I'll give him credit for consistencies against the death penalty. But these people are such freaking frauds. Just pretend Sirhan assassinated your grandfather, Carano, or my grandfather, or my father. These would be every single Kennedy, Joseph Kennedy, Joseph Kennedy Jr., every one of them would be lined up saying, oh, he spent enough time in jail. They spend their life coddling criminals, and they would absolutely 100% support his parole. But because it's their family and their dad and their granddad, it's like, oh, no, he should never see light day. He's a murderer. Well, I guess it depends who he's murdering. And I give Robert Kennedy Jr., who everyone thinks is a lunatic because he's an anti-vaxxer, and Douglas Kennedy credit because they said, let him out. They're bleeding hearts. They're liberals. They're consistent. They like free murderers, including the murderer of their dad. But the rest of them, 6 of them who oppose it, and their grandkids or their kids are all such hypocrites. There wouldn't be one. They would be absolutely 100% fighting to free a murderer if it weren't their dad or granddad. But had to get that one off my chest.
Yep.
Now we move to Stephen A. If you haven't followed the news, Stephen A. and Max Kellerman, they broke up.
Divorced.
They're like A-Rod and J-Lo. It was a very high-profile divorce. They were on the air together on First Take for 5 years. 5 years since Skip Bayless left. Stephen A. always liked Skip Bayless better and wanted him back when Skip Bayless was a free agent. Couldn't get him because Fox paid Skip Bayless $7 million a year, which makes me cry in my quiet moments. $7 million a year for Skip Bayless.
Sorry, buddy.
$7 million a year.
You're stuck with me in a basement.
I think it was one day we were watching, I was at Fox News on, and my wife, I think it was Brian Kilmeade or someone like that. And my wife said, couldn't you do what he does? And I'm like, yeah, I could.
Thanks.
Probably makes $10 million a year. I'm like, yeah, I just didn't get the right break. I could. But you know, you sit with some people and you go, how the hell did that guy get there? You know, often, I mean, you look, ever see like CNN? Don Lemon is a moron. Chris Cuomo is a meathead. Chris Cuomo's making $6 million a year. I realize he's got family connections, but sometimes you just got to get lucky. And Max Kellerman got lucky. He got picked to debate Stephen A. And they brag about their ratings. Their ratings are good because they're on at 10 a.m., I believe. They're on after drive time, after Sports Center. And I don't even know what the competition is, but they get good. Their highest rated show, I believe, on ESPN. At least I think on ESPN, maybe just in the morning, but whatever. The ratings are good. And Stephen A. makes $12 million a year. Max Kellerman was probably making, I don't know, a few million a year, but Stephen A. didn't like him. Bobby Burke, our guy from Outkick, broke this wide open, had anonymous people saying Stephen A. is forcing Max out because he doesn't like him. And Burke's theory is Max is smarter than Stephen A. and it annoys Stephen A., which I believe. I thought they would last forever because they're both liberals. They both make everything about race. They both toe the company line. They make everything about race the way everyone likes it at ESPN. They're both hardcore lefties, who think America is an awful, irredeemable, racist place, and they love, Colin Kaepernick, and they love what's her name, Megan Rapinoe, and the rest. They got along well, I thought, because they were like-minded. But apparently, behind the scenes, there was a little tension. Anyway, Stephen A's got power, so he forces Max out. Max is going to be replaced by a rotating co-host, and as Burek said, asked one day, will any white people be allowed? Because it's going to be a super woke show. You want to talk about an awful show? He wants, the one story rumor was that he wants, at least as one of his partners, Magic Johnson. That's what Stephen A.
Magic's got nothing to say.
Magic Johnson and Stephen A., they're supposed to debate. I mean, the show's good when there's tension, when there's real disagreement. That won't happen with Magic Johnson. It'll be awful. But let's listen as Max made his final appearance before getting bumped. I think he's on ESPN Radio now, and they're, I don't know, teaming him up with somebody in the mornings on ESPN Radio. Nobody will listen. Nobody will even know where he is. But they didn't fire him. They just moved him around because Stephen A. can't stand him. Here is the phoniest farewell you will ever hear. Stephen A. to Max.
Phil Murphy is saying, Max, for the 5 years. Originally, when we talked.
Give me 1 second. Hold on. I think I got something else happening here.
Struggling today, aren't you?
No, I don't think so.
To thank my man Max for the 5 years. Originally, when we talked, it was supposed to be a 3-year run, and the next thing you know, it's a 5-year run. And we've been #1 every single year. And you had an awful lot to do with that. I wanted to thank you for your contribution to the show. I wanted to call and wish you nothing but the best moving forward, because you're going to be doing big things like you've always been doing big things. And I just wanted to let you know, my man, I'm calling to wish you nothing but the best. And I'm really sorry that I couldn't be there to tell you face to face to thank you for everything that you did for the show over these last 5 years.
Oh, God. Keep in mind, the show is ending because Stephen A. hates Max and wants him out. This is on ESPN. They should have said, Stephen A., we're paying you $12 million a year. Suck it up. It's a highly rated show. You and Max, I mean, you don't like Max. That's good. The best shows oftentimes are the ones where the hosts hate each other. We've talked many times about Eddie and Dale, Eddie Edelman and Dale Arnold hated each other. And it's been a while since they were on the air together, and you don't remember, but it was great radio. So they hated each other to the point where every break, one or the other had to leave the studio.
They couldn't be in the same room.
They couldn't be, but they would fight and they'd be taking cheap shots, and it was good, tense radio. Mike and the Mad Dog hated each other for the most part, and you could feel the tension. A lot of times that's what makes it good radio, or good TV in this case, especially if the show's whole basis is debate. You guys debate. If you don't like each other, that makes it more authentic. Hell, two of my old partners, Dino and Kirk, there were times, it didn't last because Dino wanted out, but they would fight to the point where it was real and it was tense. I had fights with Kirk too, but we got along, believe it or not, really well off the air, and it was for the show. We would fight about stuff on the show. So I mean, that's what's good. That's what make good TV, good radio. And somebody at ESPN didn't say, they said, oh, Stephen A. doesn't like Max, let's get rid of Max. It should be like, Stephen A., we're giving you $12 million a year. Shut up and do your job.
I mean, ESPN is so woke now. People who watch ESPN are not looking for conflict. They don't want to see conflict on air. It's stuff that we like. That's the type of thing that we like. Nah, people who watch ESPN don't like that anymore.
Well, why do you think the show worked? They debated. They disagreed.
I mean, but it worked better than probably anything else on ESPN, but it doesn't mean their numbers are that good. I mean, ESPN's numbers in general are getting crushed.
He just said they were #1 for the entire time. So they have a #1 show, and they have two guys on it who don't like each other, who debate, disagree, and it works. And they're giving that all up because the guy making $12 million a year doesn't like the other guy. Yeah. If you don't have the balls, the backbone as an executive, and I realize the executive is Stephen A.'s friend. That's the story from Burek. Executive will do whatever Stephen A. wants. But if you don't have the guts to stand up and say, Stephen A., do your freaking job, get back in there. I mean, they don't have to live together. They don't have to room together. They just have to debate for an hour a day. It's amazing. They let the guy make that call. And if he really wants Magic Johnson, then he doesn't care
It's gonna
about
be
the
so
quality
bad.
of the show. The show will suck. It'll be comical. And if he brings on people, if it's all about whatever race, and it's all about filling and checking boxes, which is what everything's about at ESPN, then they're not going to have any real debates. They're not
No.
going to have any real tension, real friction.
If it were Barkley, it would work.
Although Barkley, I don't know if he can stay focused for
that amount of
an
time.
hour. I mean,
Yeah.
he's funny and goofy.
But he's also smart, and he's got a different
He's
like thought
fearless.
process than Stephen A.
Speaking of fearless, we don't have time to do this, but Fearless is the name of Jason Whitlock's podcast.
Yeah.
He had Bill O'Reilly on yesterday, and I give Whitlock credit. Sometimes he annoys me, and sometimes he says to Bill O'Reilly, "What do you think of Tucker Carlson?"
Oh wow.
And it was a very uncomfortable moment. We'll play it next week because it's a larger topic. I tweeted about it saying, like, what if you ask Drew Bledsoe about Tom Brady? You get an honest answer if you ask Drew Bledsoe about Tom Brady, or do you get this natural human envy and resentment because he took my job, he did it better than I did, he kind of overshadowed me to the point where people forget how good I am. People forget Drew Bledsoe was a really good quarterback.
It was.
People forget Bill O'Reilly was must-watch, number one in that slot for years, and somehow, I guess that's the best tribute you can pay to Tucker, is he eclipsed him.
Yeah.
He eclipsed Bill O'Reilly, who was the giant. It was the biggest name in the industry. In cable TV news, the biggest name ever. And Tucker has outperformed him. And O'Reilly kind of straddled the fence. He said, gave him some credit, said he was fearless, but said, he doesn't really have anyone on that debates him, and he's in the echo chamber. We could play it, but I want to get to, before we go here, let me tell you what happened with this race, the Ritzer race.
Yeah.
Kirk asked me if I want to be on his team or run. I run it all the time. My wife is involved in it. It's in my old hometown of Andover, and my wife is a good friend of Colleen Ritzer's family. Colleen Ritzer is the teacher who was murdered in Danvers. It's in her honor that they run this race every year. It's a great 5K. Everybody wears pink. That was her favorite color. They give you a nice pink T-shirt. You, Matt Carano, will be wearing pink on September. What date is it?
19th. Yeah. Can't wait.
It's a great race. It really is. Good atmosphere, good course, good people. And Kirk's done it. I beat him one year in this race. Yep, I did. It's a fact. It's a fact. I don't lie. He would. You have to admit it. Anyway, it's the only time I've beaten him, but I don't have. He's way faster than I am.
Well, Kirk runs every day, I think.
Younger and skinnier, and he's just a better runner. Anyway, so I'm going to be there. We're going to do the race. You're going to be there. We got a team that's got like 50 people on it, so you'll have lots of familiar faces. And so Minahan says we're thinking of doing a show after the race, a live show.
Yeah.
A secret live show. Not going to tell anyone. We're just going to do it. Will you do it? Join me. And I'm like, sure. And, I have a couple of conditions. I'm not going to get into those right now, but a couple of conditions. But secret. Oh, okay. So don't tell anyone. I don't tell anyone. Didn't even tell you, did I?
Oh, I didn't know about it.
Tell anybody.
You didn't tell me at all.
And then he goes
I had to hear from.
He goes on a show and announces it. I said, I thought it was a secret. He goes, yeah, I thought I was talking about it. So I figured I'd talk about it on the show. I'm like, okay, it's not a secret anymore. We're running in the race. We're on the team. You can sign up.
We'll tweet out the link later on, but it's the Step Up for Colleen 5K. You can Google it and find it, but we'll tweet out the link.
Tweet out the link. You can sign up. You can join Kirk's team.
Yeah, Team Minahan, and do that. Actually, there's been reports that this team was in top 3 for a long time, but I don't know that we're still in the top 10.
Oh, really?
I think we're getting
big teams.
Yeah. So it would be great if you all stepped up. It's a great cause. Join the team. We need to stay at least in the top 10. I think the top 3 would be preferable.
And I guess after the race, we're going to do a show. First one in a while with Minahan. You're going to be there.
I'll be there. I started training yesterday, by the way.
Callahan's going to screw it up, probably. We'll see. I guess we'll have, we'll play it, or we'll play parts of it on our show the next day.
I think on Monday. On
Monday.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. We'll play it by ear, but we'll see how it goes. But you can sign up. You can join the team. You can hang out and watch the show. I guess that's how it's going to work.
Yeah, and it's a great cause. So sign up. Join
It
the team.
sure is. There's lots of big teams, lots of teachers, because she was a teacher. It all goes to scholarships for people who want to be teachers. She was a teacher who was murdered by her student. If you haven't, forget the story, Google it. It's disturbing and tragic. And her family's amazing. Her friends are all there. It's a very emotional day and an uplifting day. And I just got to say, I look good in pink. I don't know about you. I look good in pink.
I do not.
Well, you got to wear it anyway.
I will.
And they're nice shirts and hats and everything else. It's a first-class race. So join us on, can you confirm that September 19, Sunday?
Yes.
Just want to confirm it.
The 19th.
That's today.
Correct.
September 19th in Andover. So join us. See you there. All right. Anything else, Callahan?
I'm not calling in.
Anything else?
No.
Carano.
That's it.
I'm used to that. I got to stop saying that. I'm going to change the script. But that is it for today. We will leave it there. Thanks to everybody for watching, for listening, for commenting. Thanks to Turtle Boy. He had to go wrap his child's face in cloth and put her on the bus. Oh man, imagine how annoying Turtle Boy is to like the teachers and principals. Right. He shows up to everything without a mask and he won't put one on. And soon, I'm sure his kid will be as rebellious as he is, and she'll be causing problems. And that's good because everybody should be rebelling against this insanity. But we'll give you an update on Turtle Boy because since school just start this week, he's going to be a problem. He's going to be a problem for that school district. He's a problem for any of these mask fanatics. All right, we will leave it there. I'm Gerry Callahan. This is the Callahan Podcast, and we will talk to you again soon.